There's a story in the news today, a good news story coming from a basis of total insanity, because at a tribunal, Cambridgeshire Council from right here in England were found to have unlawfully discriminated against a woman called Elizabeth Pitt. She's a social worker and a lesbian. But she wasn't discriminated against because of her sexuality. No, it was because she was unfairly treated and reprimanded for her use of, and I quote, an aggressive tone when one of her male co-workers explained that his dog, a miniature dachshund, is gender fluid. He then put a dress on the male dog, claiming that would make it female. No, that his dog is gender fluid. Can he talk to it? Is he Dr. fucking Doolittle? Although being a council worker, Doolittle is more of a job description. But this insanity hasn't affected the canine world. Yet, in the run-up to the tribunal, Elizabeth was banned from contacting the Cambridgeshire Council LGBTQIA+ committee or organisation. So that's a lesbian being banned from contacting an LGBTQIA+ group because her comments on a dog in a dress were deemed as being transphobic. You can't make this shit up. The tribunal ruled that Elizabeth should be fully reinstated and that all the staff who had complained about her are sent on a course on the importance of free speech. She was also awarded £63,000 in compensation, which sounds great, and for her it is. But of course, it's money from the council. So that's taxpayers' money, and we all know that local authorities don't give a shit when they're spending money that isn't theirs. I know I sound like a scratched record when I talk about this gender ideology bullshit, but I honestly think it's something we should be concerned about. We need to stop it before the rot has set in too far, because we live in a very troubled world, and if we think of two possible adversaries for the West, China and Russia, the average Chinese child can not only strip a machine gun, they can also make an iPhone. And in Russia, high schools have after-school clubs specialising in hand-to-hand combat and even knife fighting. Whereas in the West, we have young people who'll spend a day crying on TikTok because someone didn't use the pronoun they made up that morning.
Remember when some people started using they, them pronouns because they didn't want gendered terms used for them? And cis people started being like, they'dy, gentle them. Just because you put they or them in a gendered word does not make it any less gendered.
I'm not even bothered what she actually said there. It's those eyes. That's a full plate of crazy with a side of narcissism. Why is it so many of the they-them crowd have the same manic stare and this sense of self-righteousness? Because the casual observer can see that they're as mad as a box of frogs. Anyway, here's a clip of another they-them who's much, much calmer, and thankfully this gentleman got the memo and he's got a massive unsightly septum piercing.
So my pronouns are they, them, and I need people to understand that I truly don't give a fuck if you use the wrong pronouns most of the times. I'm not gonna correct you, because to me my pronouns are like an approximation. It's language that can never contain all of who I am. So when I say my pronouns are they, them, I'm just letting you know, yo, I would like for you to acknowledge the fact that I'm not a man or a woman, that I exist outside of this binary. But if you don't do that, that's your problem. It's not mine. You cannot misgender me because my gender is something that is personal and beautiful. Oh my God. The way that the energies flow through me that created whatever the fuck we got going on over here is unique. It's unprecedented. So I'm not mad at you for being confused. I'm not mad at you for getting it wrong, to be honest. But I'm not gonna, that's not my work to help.
I've cut that clip short because there's another 3 minutes of that crap. Now, to be fair, he starts off well, calmly, and clearly saying that he won't correct people if they don't use his preferred pronouns. And I guess the reason for that is that the other people will actually use the correct pronouns according to his biological sex. But then that ego kicks in. I'm more than a man or a woman. I'm more than that. I'm both and neither. I am energy. I am all-knowing. I'm all-seeing. I'm all that ever has been and all that ever will be. How many they-thems appear to have a fucking messiah complex? Now, It's said that God made man in his own image, and it's a sad thing for Christians around the world if the Almighty turns out to be a slightly effeminate bloke who's self-obsessed with 100 weight of metal stuck in his nose. But I started off by talking about a story where a woman had apparently misgendered a dog, so there is an obvious crossover. There's a group who've tunnelled their way into the LGBTQIA+ community, although it has nothing to do with their sexuality. They're just full-on crazies. I'm talking, of course, about furries.
What do you mean my card's been declined? Try it again. Buy me Prada. Balenciaga. Love the drama. Let's go Bahamas.
How is anyone honestly meant to react to that? 3 things. Firstly, no one will convince me that isn't connected to some weird, depraved sexual practice. Secondly, people like that must have no emotional maturity because the rest of us stopped pretending to be animals when we were 3 or 4 years old. And thirdly, yes, do it in your own home if you want to, but the people who take it out onto the streets should be fucking sectioned. Also, what sort of animal was that meant to be? It had purple hair, and that's not a common colour among mammals, as far as I know anyway. That was sort of a fox that also had wings, but those wings are incapable of generating any lift. Another weird thing I've noticed, for the furries who wear the full face covering, their costumes are always slightly boz-eyed. Why is that? Why do you want to dress up as an animal that has a mild sight defect? There's one clip left to go, and this will be the worst thing you'll see all day. Here's another furry explaining furry language.
Hi! Boop! I want to show you guys some different words in the furry language. Furball incoming! Oogly boogly. Aga baga. Ooh, arigato. Baka dumpy in my...
That's enough internet for today. Once again, he's got the mad staring eyes, but the language of the furry... He sounds like a 2-year-old who's being tested to find out if he's got learning disabilities with a smattering of Japanese thrown in. And generally speaking, I am not a violent man, but I would punch him until I passed out. Anyway, let's remember the good part of today's video. A woman has won in her tribunal against a man who thinks that putting a dog in a dress can change its sex. And that man is employed in local government. That's the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe if you haven't already. And as ever, thanks for watching. There's a story in the news today, which is a good story from a world of absolute insanity. Because Cambridge Council, right here in Cambridgeshire, fuck it. How does he know that the dog is gender fluid? Can he talk to the animals? Is he Dr. Dolittle? Although working for the council, Dolittle is more of a job description. I bet what it is he thinks the dog isn't happy with its gender because it isn't happy when he fucks it. When you see people who dress the dogs up, we all know that's what they get up to. And I know I sound like a scratched record when I talk about this gender ideology bullshit, but fuck it. And I know I sound like a scratched record when I talk about this gender ideology bullshit, but I honestly think it's something we should be concerned about. And I've got the wrong page. Fuck it. The eyes, that mad stare they all have. That's a serving of crazy with a side of narcissism. Narcissism. Fuck it. Hay fever's come, Jack. Fuck it. The hay fever's come back just for the end of the summer. So to talk fairy, careful Dan. So to talk fairy, you have to sound like a young child who's being tested for having learning disabilities with a smattering of Japanese. And generally speaking, I'm not a violent man, but fuck it. That's enough internet for today. So to sound like a furry, oh fuck this completely.